women, I say it starts here, then it goes here, pointing to my heart, and then it's down there. And then for men, if you are heterosexual, then your partner might, it may start there, and then it goes here, and then it might go, maybe it'll go here. We don't know where it goes sometimes. Yeah. But depending, again, on your orientation or what have you, you will have sometimes those disconnects with your partner. So a lot of the women I see, they feel badly because they want to be intimate with their partner, but they just literally just don't feel like it. Like I just don't feel anything. So this could definitely be hormonally related, but it's also stress plays a big part in it. I see decreased libido, especially in younger women as early as their late 30s, because they have small children, they're tired, they're working, and it's hard to have a libido when you're exhausted. Your libido really requires what's called your parasympathetic nervous system, but we tend to operate in our sympathetic nervous system. So we are typically running, going, fight or flight. We're just going. And so it really requires us to turn off our sympathetic nervous system and turn on our parasympathetic, but that could take, a long time. And if you got kids that you just put to bed and you just went to clean the kitchen and then you're trying to get ready for work the next day, like you're already trying to process today and what's going to happen tomorrow, it's really hard to get there because you really, most women, the average woman isn't driven that way. I would say the average woman that I see, and I dare say, I see hundreds of patients, so I don't think I'm that far off, but I'm not saying in any way that women don't have libido during this time, but it definitely fluctuates. And in terms of the potential for getting pregnant, there are some labs, there are some things that we can look at. We look at one hormone in particular called your FSH. And if that is a certain number, then it's like, yeah, you're not going to have a baby. And so you could still have a high FSH and still be menstruating. But if it's at a certain point, it's not going back down. And that's really what informs that. But you still have to be careful with appropriate birth control. Again, in certain situations, if your partner, it doesn't either have a vasectomy or if you're not in a heterosexual relationship, then some things you don't have to worry about, obviously. But for those of you that do, you definitely need to pay attention, because that's when you get the twins. That's when, your fertility actually almost peaks a little bit, and then it just goes away. But yeah.
Thank you for that, and helping us, sort of move through that. And you're absolutely right, about libido. You don't necessarily have that, it can have nothing to do with your fertility. And I think I was thinking, I thought more about just having the desire, and, to have sex, and how that ties in with perhaps fertility, your not necessarily with your ability to have children, but wanting to have sex. And it's just, it seems like they're it's tied, in some way.
Well, yeah, it can. I mean, typically during your menstrual cycle, if you're still ovulating, then there's a little peak in your testosterone level right around the time of ovulation. But that's actually why some women have such weird, or not weird, but some of the symptoms that they're having have to do more so with the fact that you're not ovulating. So in the earlier part of your perimenopause, your estrogen levels actually are fine. That's why a lot of women in early perimenopause, they don't have hot flashes because they still generally have enough estrogen. That's not so much the issue. What's happening is they're not ovulating anymore. So what happens is during a regular menstrual cycle, your estrogen levels are going to go up, and then you're going to ovulate, and then your progesterone levels are going to peak. Yeah. Well, your progesterone is what counterbalances your estrogen that peaked at the beginning of the cycle. So once you ovulate, exactly 14 days after ovulation is when you're going to bleed. But what happens is you stop ovulating. And so you just keep making estrogen. You don't make any more progesterone. And so that's why your cycles are all off, because you're really not ovulating. You're not making this progesterone. You're not balancing out your estrogen. So you bleed, right? That's why you're having heavy menstrual cycles. That's why your bleeding is erratic, because you're not ovulating anymore. It's called anovulatory bleeding. So that's why a lot of women will get endometrial ablations during this time. They'll get hysterectomies. I would say, you know, before, and Black women in particular are more prone to be offered that as a procedure. So you just need to be aware that some of these things you're seeing are really hormonal changes. They're not structural changes. We also are more likely to have fibroids. So, you know, there's definitely that part of it. But I've seen plenty of women that it's like they had a hysterectomy, and it's really just because they had anovulatory bleeding, and their doctor just never took the time to really help balance out their hormones and see if that was really something that could benefit them.
Yes.
I'm not saying that they didn't need those in any case, but you just need to be aware that there are different reasons. But that cycle affects everything. And that's, again, why women they have more irritability. That's why natural progesterone is just like a lifesaver for a lot of patients. That's the most common hormone that I'm going to talk to them about, especially in the early perimenopausal phase. So yeah, this graph here at the beginning of it, oh no, this is over your lifetime. So this isn't a menstrual cycle, but it's good enough, because this is, I like this just to explain why you have some of those symptoms. And this is what I share. This is what's happening for a lot of women, especially if they're in their 50s, they got teenagers. They're teenagers, their hormones are right there at puberty. The purple line is showing your estradiol, that's your estrogen level. So really the only thing you really need to look at this graph is the purple line, where you see at puberty, your hormones are basically doing all of that. Yeah. And then during your reproductive years, they kind of stable out. And then during perimenopause, they start doing all that again. So I joke and say, but now you have a job and you got kids and you just can't be crazy, but you feel just like you felt, you know, over here. But now you just weren't ready for this on this side, but that's really what's happening. And I don't think I gave you a slide of just the menstrual cycle, but this doesn't really quite explain it. But at the end of the day, this is when you're going to really see those changes, especially in that perimenopausal period. And then in the post-menopause, you know, things settle down, but you can still, you know, you're still going to have hot flashes. You still can have night sweats. You're still going to, all of this stuff still goes on. I'm post-menopausal, I don't know, at least 10 years now. And I still have night sweats. I'm still irritable.
So do I. And I think it's amazing. I know they say in post-menopause, you know, you could be going through symptoms for another 10 years.